Back in September 2020, I made this video about my plans for financial independence. Well, it needs an update. I went to a bank the other day and there was this man behind the counter telling his customer that the branch were about to close down. "What are you going to do?" asked the woman. And the guy replied, "Oh, I'm done. I'm retiring. Done my 40 years here." The way he spoke about this was like somebody would tell you how long a sentence they just served. 40 years of, "I want to withdraw some money, please. I want to pay some money in, please." It kind of does sound like a sentence. I was walking home and talking to myself in full disbelief. 40 years. And that was a great reminder of why I want to be financially free before I hit 40 years at any workplace. So, what's the plan? I made these plans for my financial freedom not even 2 years ago, and they've already changed. So that says a lot about goals and planning. And I thought it would be actually a good idea to talk about it now, to see what happened since, how it affected my numbers, and mention what's next. Let's take a look. In my old video, I was discussing two numbers, my small and my big enough numbers. I'm not going to go into detail now. If you're curious, you can go and watch that video. These numbers were determined by the 4% rule. Yes, the famous 4% rule. And my willingness to work part-time for quite a long time in the future. So the small number was 300k, and the big number, the full fire number, if you want, was 700k. Now, if you watched any of my videos about expenses, this one from 2020 and this one from 2021, you know that my expenses completely changed since my boyfriend, Adam, moved in with me in February last year. Yeah, it's been a year already. My cost of living went down, I wouldn't say drastically, but definitely significantly enough to reflect on what my new revised financial freedom numbers would look like. So I needed to do some recalculating. The main change was in the housing costs. As you can find out from this video, I started charging my boyfriend rent, and that really lowered my fire numbers. I aim to spend maximum 2k per month, and this covers everything I need, including savings. So using the 4% rule, my fire number would be my annual expenses multiplied by 25, which gives us 600k. But as I said, I always assume that I will bring in some income. I will still work for quite a while because, you know, work is good for us as long as it's something we enjoy for whatever reason. I always assume that I will be able to bring at least 12k per year. I think it's a fair assumption to make. And if it's 12k per year, it's tax-free and it will work beautifully with what I call my triple F, Financial Freedom Fund. Now then, my maximum 24k per year went down to 16.8 per year because of the reduced housing expense. That's quite a chunk. So what does it mean for my numbers? My small number, 300k, so the one that would generate me 12k per year. And before the 4% haters and dynamic withdrawal rate preachers start educating me in the comment section, I do know it's a generic rule. I spoke about it here, but I use it as a rule of thumb as I need to start somewhere. And yes, I am a fan of dynamic withdrawals. Where were we? Oh yeah, my small number went down from 300k to 120k. I know it sounds unbelievably low, but when you look at the numbers, £12,000 to be generated from earnings and £12,000 to be generated by my investments minus £7,200 that I'm saving on my housing costs, it means only 4.8k times 25. So that's 120k. The numbers don't lie. That's enough to make me semi-retire. And semi-retirement to me is when you still work for fun, for pleasure, for whatever fancy trips or experiences you want to treat yourself and your loved ones to. But you know that your triple F is there for you to help you or just to leave it alone for later. If you're lucky enough to make your part-time work pay for all your living costs, like I am at the moment, then you can actually leave it for later. Now you know from my main financial freedom updates that I already hit that number a while back. So how about my big number? Has it also been affected? Has it also been changed, reduced? Yes, it has. We're not who we were 2 years ago. Not only because of the usual passing of time, but because of the unusual event, the pandemic. I believe we all had plenty of time to reflect on things and have a moment of so-called COVID clarity. A realization about who and what is important in our lives. What I realized was that I see myself choosing between two options when it comes to my future. One of these options is living in London together with Adam, and the other option is moving away from London, possibly on my own. Of course, this is all guesswork, as nobody knows what the future will bring, but I'm trying to optimize for either scenario here to be prepared. It also makes life more interesting to look forward to something. And because these options are so vastly different, they considerably change the numbers I need to achieve. So in option one, the one in which I live in London with Adam, to fully retire, I will need £420,000. This will cover all my expenses while living together, and yes, I will still have a mortgage. In the previous video about my financial independence plans, I was talking about my willingness to do the house up. So, if I did it, how much more would I need? Who knows? I could take some equity out of this house to spread the cost over many years. Oh yes, and to those of you not familiar with taking equity out, when you own a property and its value increases, you can take a part of that value out. This will mean a bigger mortgage, but you'll be able to access that money, otherwise locked in this house or flat you own. So, taking equity out would be one way to do it. Another one would be to up my enough number to say 600k and pay for the work in cash. Either way, 600k would be my maximum higher number. And that's 100k less than my previous higher number. And now option two. Option two is the scenario in which I end up moving from London on my own. And if you ask, why on your own? It's because Adam is a hardcore Londoner, that hasn't changed, and is not sure where he'd like to live in a few years' time. So it's only fair to consider this option without him. And let's face it, things happen. People do break up. And it's good to be aware of what you wanted if you were to be single. Well, I most certainly wouldn't want to live in London anymore if it came to that. So in option two, if I moved away from London, I would remove the main expense. I would remove the mortgage. Even right now, I could sell this house and have enough equity to buy a 2-bedroom house somewhere outright, not in Southeast, if you ask, and still have some tens of thousands to add to my main financial freedom fund. This means my expenses would be lowered again because of lack of mortgage. And that is more or less 12k per year, so it makes it super easy to calculate my large enough number for this option. It would be 300k, so 12 times 25 is exactly that. My old small number becomes my new large away from London number. And as before, I'd still want to work part-time, so I would still bring in some income. One of the reasons why these numbers are so low. So what does it all change for me right now? It looks like I hit my small living in London number, which was completely unexpected. I didn't expect this number to be lowered, and so to hit it that soon. Essentially now I can work 6 months per year and still meet my investment goals of contributing £1,000 per month or £12,000 per year into my financial freedom fund. Which means I choose to work rather than have to work at the moment. I'm a designer and a coach and happen to like what I do, so work is more fun than not. Do I do it? Do I take 6 months off? Not yet, but the option is there, and that is exactly what I wanted to achieve in terms of financial freedom first. To have that option, to be able to do it. So what are the biggest lessons so far? 3 lessons really. The biggest one is to focus on actions, not on goals, as goals change. I think this is the biggest thing that I found true so far. Focusing on investing, making sure I enjoy what I do, not giving up on my strategy. And what's been important is to trust the process, not doubt it, and keep going. Goals change and ultimately are not that important. Actions, strategies, systems are. My second lesson, enjoy the journey and take time off when you need to. Recently I realized that I can take time off and still hit my goals, not kill myself in the process of fighting for my financial freedom. I worked a lot throughout the pandemic, and there's always something to do related to earnings. But now I can honestly say that I can bask in the awareness that I can afford to be time rich and take a chunk of time off when I need to do nothing and trust that things will be still on track. And my third lesson, accepting mortgage as not a biggie. That was an important one for me. I always saw mortgage as a huge psychological burden. But in hindsight, that mainly stemmed from the fact that I was having a mortgage solely in my name and I was living on my own. Now, when I live with Adam, I can see that it's not that stressful anymore and we can support each other, and that really adds to my acceptance of mortgage as a very affordable loan. And let's be honest, to pay £1,000 to live in London is really not much. So back in 2020, I did mention paying off my mortgage as part of my big enough number. But now I don't have such a need anymore. As long as it's low, as long as I can easily pay it, I really don't mind. And if I decide to move from London, mortgage will not be an issue anymore. So what are my deadlines and what are the plans again? I have no deadlines. People very often ask me about my deadlines, but I have none. I know that lots of people in the FIRE community have very ambitious goals and very ambitious deadlines that follow those goals, but I don't. I started exploring financial freedom out of curiosity, not out of pressure or desperation to change my life, as I never disliked my life that much. And so I don't see retirement as my ultimate goal. Financial freedom is something I pretty much achieved already. And because retirement is a number, once I hit that number, I'll be able to retire. When will this happen? Who knows? It depends on my contributions, it depends on the stock markets, and whatever happens in my life. For now, no changes. I still aim to contribute at least £1,000 per month or £12,000 per year into my financial freedom fund and not overdo it. Some of you tell me how you struggle with sacrificing too much in the name of investing. I can definitely relate to that. I used to be the same. But do remember that whatever plans and goals you have, they need to serve both your future and your present self. Otherwise, you are very likely to create a lot of unhappiness in your life, and you're not going to sustain that for a long time. So finally, hitting my small financial freedom goal while being in a relationship and living together was much, much easier. And I imagine that hitting full financial freedom number is also much, much easier in a couple. But is it still financial independence though? I always wonder that when I see couples striving for financial freedom together, with having everything in one pot. And it does depend on other person's presence and, to a degree, income. For now, I treat it as independence, as Adam and I keep our finances separate. So if we were to part our ways, I would still be on track with my goals. And also, he's just not interested in financial freedom, so this is solely my goal. I suspect that the point at which I start questioning things more will be right after hitting £300,000 in my financial freedom fund. Because at that point, I'll be able to actually move from London, live mortgage-free and fully retire. And that could be very tempting. That's it, guys. I hope you found this video inspiring, and if you're on a similar journey, and no matter at which point of this journey, I hope you also stay open to readjusting your plans and treat them as flexible scenarios instead of rigid must-happens. What have been your biggest lessons so far and biggest frustrations? Let me know in the comments. It's always great to hear about your experiences. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you soon.